Addressing imposter syndrome is important to me because it's something I've dealt with pretty much my entire life. And this is one of the most common things that people come to me with in my line of work in hypnotherapy. And amongst the clientele that I deal with, which is really high performers and high earners, imposter syndrome, it's one of the most common traits. The imposter syndrome is the feeling and the idea that you don't belong, right? And so what that's really rooted in is self-worth and self-esteem, right? You feel like you aren't supposed to be there. And the thing about high performers and high achievers is they get to a lot of places ahead of schedule, right? The young entrepreneur who has built a 7-figure business, or the middle-aged, powerhouse who, somehow, left their corporate job and is now able to build a multi 6 or 7-figure business, seemingly out of nowhere, right? And who is now in these big rooms, and, they didn't take a traditional path to get there, but they just somehow made it, right? These are the people, this is me. And as someone who has built a multi 6-figure business very quickly and a platform that has reached millions of people in a matter of months, I know exactly what this feels like, and the only reason why I've been able to achieve what I've achieved is because I have conquered imposter syndrome, and it's one of the things that I'm very, very good at in curing in other people. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and so I'm going to talk to you about how I've personally overcome this and how I help other people with it. So I want you to understand that the way society is set up right now, and the fact that it's primarily digitally based, online platforms, social media, especially in North America, even if you just look around in the physical world, it's all about making you question yourself and your choices. It's all about comparison, fueling comparison, followers, all these metrics, number of likes. We measure ourselves based on how much money we make, all of these things, right? Even when I led this video, I started with credentials. People are always trying to prove themselves by stating their credentials and make themselves seem larger than life. And so as a result, it's very, very easy to feel small. As soon as you open up your Instagram app, or as soon as you open YouTube, right? It's all designed to make you feel small, right? So that you can stay on these platforms and continue to get the dopamine hits and waste your precious resource, which is most precious resource, which is time, and so on and so forth. I'm going down a tangent here, but bringing it back. So imposter syndrome is as prevalent as it is because we think that we have to, in order to be qualified, we have to be the most certified, we have to have the most number of followers, we have to be the industry leader, we have to get the most number of likes, we have to drive the best car, we have to be a household name, we have to be famous in order for us to feel like we belong. And it's the truth is actually the reverse. If you want to make real, tangible, and very quick and substantial progress in your life, whatever you're doing, right? If you want to build a following, if you want to build an audience, and most importantly, if you want to feel within yourself that you are not an imposter, but that you belong here and that you were born to be doing what you're doing, I need you to understand the following concept. People do not follow the most qualified person. They follow the person who is the most passionate. When people look for a leader, right? And the reason why you feel imposter syndrome is because you feel like you are not meant to lead people down this path. You feel like you're not the appropriate person or face or spokesperson to be doing what you're doing. That is what an imposter is. And if you feel like that, if you feel like you have this imposter syndrome, it's from my experience and having dealt with this with thousands of people, you most likely are looking at your external qualifications. You're looking at your resume to say, okay, my resume doesn't stack up against that person or that person. And I will say, you will never be the smartest person. You will never be the most qualified. You'll never be the most talented. You will never be the most well-spoken. But what you can be right now is the most passionate. The most passionate, and on another note, the most confident. That person is the person that belongs there. Because again, there will always be someone you look little to. someone who sees you as little, someone who sees you as less than, someone who sees you as unqualified. There's always going to be someone who looks at you as unqualified, or as not as talented, or as less intelligent. There's always going to be someone. It's just a never-ending trap. It's an illusion, and I need you to understand that it's an illusion. And how do you break free of the illusion? How do you, where is truth in this world? And as it relates to imposter syndrome, well, the truth is, the person who is most qualified is the person who is most passionate. You look at any war general, any leader, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, you name one, right? These people were the most passionate, right? There's always going to be someone making more money than you. There are hypnotherapists who are bigger than I am. That did not stop me, because I was, and still believe I am, the most passionate about providing real transformation in people, the way I've been able to provide this transformation to myself. And that is the only thing that I care about. That is my only metric that I evaluate every single day and that I audit. How passionate am I about providing real change in other people? If that metric meets the threshold that it's supposed to be at, then I proceed, and I give myself permission to proceed, and nobody can tell me a thing about the fact that I'm not supposed to be here, right? And I would also argue that there is a good element to imposter syndrome. When you stop labeling it as imposter syndrome and you look at it as a positive thing, it starts to become a good thing. You start to label it as, I'm in spaces where I'm uncomfortable. And that's a good thing. I'm in spaces where there are people who are, I'm in rooms around people who are smarter than me, right? I am dealing with people who are more qualified than me. And what happens when you stop focusing on how little that makes you feel, because it doesn't make you any less, it starts to make you better. You start to become more progress oriented, right? And so I look at a person, especially when I'm evaluating whether or not I would like to move forward with a client. I look at them and say, sure, they feel like an imposter, but do they let that feeling dictate? How do they let that feeling dictate their actions? Do they let that stop them in their tracks? And do they let that stop them from putting out content or from building their business? Or do they continuously look to ask for help? Right? See the difference? When someone looks to ask for help, it means they recognize their vulnerability. They're okay with being vulnerable, and they recognize their shortfalls, their shortcomings, and they are continuously looking to get better. So when I come on here, it's never the idea that I am perfect, ever. Or else there would be no need for me to make content. There would be no need for me to run a business. There would be no need for me to continuously work on myself. I'm always asking for help. I'm always in rooms with people who are smarter than me, better than me, right? Mentors, coaches. I pay for this stuff. I pay for access to people who are better than me. You're never in a complete state, right? So imposter syndrome is the act of swimming upstream, swimming against the current. Working on yourself and bettering yourself is the idea that you are now in the stream of the best version of yourself. You're going with the current. Imposter syndrome is there are two sides of the coin. I don't have a coin with me, but on one side you look at it as imposter syndrome. On another side you look at it as, you know what, I recognize that I'm not perfect. Now let's go out and better myself. And in the process, I'm going to post content or build my business to document my journey so I can see my progress, right? And I'm going to be vulnerable and ask for help. That's it. There's no magical wand that I wave. It's I have to get people to being used to the discomfort and to look at it as an advantage, a competitive advantage. Because in the world of 1%ers, 99% of people drown in their imposter syndrome. They can't see it as anything else. And they're waiting for someone to tell them that they are good enough. It's not about being good enough. You'll never be good enough. There's always someone out there you will never be good enough to. So when do you accept the fact that it's like a never-ending maze that you've thrown yourself into, right? And when I realized that, I'm like, because I used to be scared to put out content. I used to be scared to, for the longest time, I was doing this on the side and never told anybody about it. It wasn't formalized as my business, Deep Mind Programming Co. But I've always been into wellness and meditation and sound meditation and hypnosis and hypnotherapy. I never told anybody about it because I was afraid that if I were to put out content, someone would be like, oh, this person is not qualified, or where did they go to school for this, or what degree do they have? And then I realized, wow, that person is so focused on belittling other people. I'm focused on the passion behind it, the impact behind it, and that is my metric. It's not dollars, it's not qualifications, it's not certifications, it's not how many years I've been doing this, it's impact. It's passion. And the people you work with can sense that energy. The people around you, your family, your kids, your parents, they sense the energy, they sense the passion. I would feel confident going to war under a leader who is ready to go into war themselves, who is passionate, who has been to war and provided themselves the transformation that I'm looking to get myself. I don't care where they went to school or what degree they have or what certification they have. There are neuroscientists who went to school for 10, 15 years, right? Who will run circles around me when it comes to talking about the mind and the brain and how that works and the science and biology behind it, but they don't have, a social media following of 100,000+ people, and they're not out here providing impact every day and sharing the personal story and being vulnerable. They're not ready to go to war. They work in a closed room or a hospital and just do what they do and then go home and drive their Porsche. Do you see the difference? So if there's anybody watching this who is trying to who's on their way to building a business or is performing highly, your metric should be and only be how passionate you are and how much of an impact you're willing to provide. And the thing about imposter syndrome, why it's so common amongst high performers, is because it's one of the things that has gotten them to where they are, their successful state, maybe monetarily or financially. The feeling of not being good enough pressures us to get results so that hopefully one day we think we'll be good enough in someone else's eyes. I will say this, the only conflict that truly matters is the only conflict that needs to be resolved is the conflict that resides within yourself. So when you resolve that and you look at yourself as good enough, and trust me, you are more than good enough. You are beyond qualified. And when you see that in yourself, when you decide, it's a decision you'll make on a Wednesday morning. When you decide to see yourself as good enough and qualified enough, you stop that garbage, bullshit story you keep telling yourself for whatever reason. When you decide to see yourself as good enough, the people around you will start to see you as good enough. It happens that easily. That's it. That is how I have blown up on social media, on my Instagram. That is how I've blown up my business in a good way. And that's it. It's just a decision. And I help people realize that they are telling themselves a bullshit story, an illusion, a narrative, and I help them decide that they are not an imposter, that they're the leaders of their own legacy. They're the leaders of their own story. They're the leaders of this new age revolution that they are putting forth, that they're paving the way for. Because there's nobody else like you. There's nobody else who has been what you've been through, who is as uniquely qualified in the way that you are, who speaks the combination of the way you speak, how you see the world, what you've been through, where you come from, your culture, the language, the family environment. You are uniquely qualified to pave your own way, but you keep comparing your path to someone else's. You'll never be like them, but more importantly, they'll never be like you. They can't fight your fight. They can't compete with you. They can't do what you do. If we all threw our problems into a pile and saw what everybody else is dealing with, they would run and take theirs back. They would take theirs back in a heartbeat and run. And so would you. So you're only an imposter of someone else's story. Do you understand? You are only an imposter of someone else's story. You are the leader and the chosen one of your story. You see? I hope you see. If not, please watch this from the beginning. Listen to this every day until you get it. Because there's nothing else to grab. There's no magic wand. You decide. You are You are choosing. You choose every series of moments in our life. Our life happens in frames, but because of the illusion of time, we look at it as one long day, one long moment that is our life. But it's frames of choices and decisions. In one frame, about 10 minutes ago, I decided to turn on my camera and start speaking. I could have easily just chosen to go back in my house. We are making choices, and so when I look in the mirror, I choose to see someone who is uniquely qualified, a conqueror, a mogul. That is what I choose to see, and my life has slowly but surely begun to comply. When you start to recognize that nobody else's story matters, and the people who are choosing to see you as less qualified or less talented or not good enough, that's how they're spending their time. That's how they're spending their time instead of worrying about themselves. Your competitive advantage is focusing on you and only you. This is why I don't follow anyone. It's because I focus on my story and how I can provide a gem that someone can walk away with every single day. I focus on writing my story and my legacy. Therefore, I cannot be an imposter. Those things they don't add up. How can I be an imposter to my own story? I'm him. I'm me. I'm Pablo. I'm the only one that fits this character. And the same applies for you. I would feel like an imposter if I'm comparing myself to Oprah Winfrey or Barack Obama. Of course I'm an imposter. Right? I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't start the Oprah Winfrey Network, a multi-billion-dollar network. Right? Nor am I trying to. I'm trying to carve my own path and narrative. However it plays out. All I know is I can control the inputs. I can control the fact that I post 3 to 5 times a day. I can control the fact that I spend hours and hours and hours crafting and creating my custom hypnotherapy sessions. That I can control the inputs, and thankfully the outputs. When you are in the stream of your own story, 1 ounce of output will equal 3 ounces of reward. That is a testament to the fact that our universe is generous, and the things that happen to us don't happen to us, they happen for us. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment, and all I ask is if you've made it this far, help me out by giving this video a thumbs up. Give it a like so that other people can receive this message, the people who really, really need it. All right, see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.